So you set up the welder for the first time, you've tinkered around with some scrap pieces of metal, and now you're ready to take on your very first welding project. I'll show you everything that you need to know about how to build a welding table just like this one. I have not welded ever before taking on this project, and you can do it too. Let me save you a whole bunch of time and money by walking you through everything that you need to know to tackle your first project.
Now, I made this video to help first-time metalworkers like myself through properly planning and getting started with this project, but if you just want to watch me build this thing, go right on ahead and skip to the final build section. You'll only hurt my feelings a little bit.
There's two things you're probably looking for if you're a new welder, other than, of course, the welder itself. A welding cart, this one I got free from a friend, and a welding table, kind of like this one. And if you didn't know already, you will eventually need a good sturdy metal table like this for a variety of reasons. One, it won't catch on fire like a wooden table. Two, it helps with grounding clamp locations. Three, it can help store your ever-increasing set of tools since you're getting into a new hobby. And four, it provides a sturdy surface to help clamp things down. Now, let me give you some reasons why you should build one yourself. Most importantly, it's an excellent first project to really practice welding. The designs can be as simple as you want it to be, and you'll get plenty of chances to practice those welds without dire consequences if you mess up a few welds. And don't be an idiot and try to take on a roll cage for your first welding experience. The second reason is that welding tables can be very expensive. I mean, you can pick up a small table like this one for less than $100, but a beefy welding table can be thousands of dollars. For around $250, I built this on my own, and it can be even cheaper if you're willing to forego some features like caster wheels and a tray. And if you can get your metal from a scrapyard, although that isn't something that I would recommend people just starting out, it can be even cheaper. The third and last reason is that you can customize it to exactly what you need. And speaking of which, let me quickly walk you through some features of my relatively simple table. So my table is 28 inches deep and 56 inches wide. This gives me enough space to work on without being too heavy to move around. And for me, it fits perfectly in this space right here, but it can also sit in this corner basically flush, or it can sit on the side just like this while leaving enough space for a car to pull in on this side of the garage. This table is also 43 inches from the ground, which makes it a standing table. I already have a work table over there if I need to sit and work on something, but being this tall leaves plenty of room for me to store things underneath the table like this welding cart. And also, I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall, so this table is perfect height for a standing desk, at least for myself. Now, it's not a very heavy table, but it is very sturdy. I don't exactly know how much it weighs, but I can easily lift it by myself if I ever need to. The edges of the table have enough space for me to securely kind of place a C-clamp or a grounding clamp. And the following are kind of optional features, but I do think they're important. The table is on 4 lockable caster wheels. They're about 5 inches tall, which makes it really a breeze to push around, but it won't move if you're trying to work on it. There are also these trays that I attached to hold and kind of hang some tools or to put scrap pieces of metal that might come in handy later. And you can obviously kind of customize these trays to fit your needs, but I'm addicted to kind of creating more and more space for tools, as you guys can probably see. So adding that tray was a no-brainer for me.
I know you're eager to go off and buy your very first batch of steel, but hold your horses, do yourself and your wallet a favor and plan this out first. I spent about an hour drawing up and redrawing exactly what I had in mind, and this is critical for a couple of reasons. One, steel ain't cheap, so try to minimize waste by knowing exactly how much material you'll need before you head down to the metal supply, and two, having a detailed plan will save you a bunch of time while you're actually building. Okay, so here are my blueprints with planned measurements, I guess for your reference, just in case you're trying to build one similar to mine. Now, it's not to scale, but it doesn't need to be. You just need to know the lengths of the different pieces and how many of them you'll need so that you'll know exactly what and how much to buy. I'm really bad at 3D sketches and I don't know how to use any fancy software, so I just drew up the plan from multiple sides, which I found to serve my purposes just fine. The lines highlighted in yellow indicate optional caster wheels and the trays, and you can probably save yourself about $60 and about 4 to 5 hours of build time if you choose not to do them, but I don't think you'll regret it if you go for the deluxe version of this table. You'll only need two types of metal here. One, a relatively thick sheet, which will serve as both the tabletop and bottom of the trays, and an 1.5" square tubing, which will, well, be everything else. The sheet is 11 gauge thick, which is thick enough to be very sturdy for a table this size, but doesn't add a lot of extra weight that you don't need. Similar story with the 1.5" square tubing. I found 14 gauge here to be plenty strong enough. You can go with a 2" square tubing or a thicker gauge tubing, but again, for a table this size, I think that would be overkill. Not to mention, thicker the metal, more expensive things get. After doing all the math, I found that I needed one sheet of 11 gauge thick, 28 inches by 56 inches, which will be the tabletop. Now, 8 of 14 gauge 1.5" square tubing, 57 inches long each, which is only slightly more than I need, but the extra might come in handy if I make some mistakes. I'm also choosing to have these cut at this length because I know my Tacoma's truck bed is only 5 feet or 60 inches long. Lastly, we need a smaller sheet of about 12 by 35 inches, which will serve as the bottom of the trays and to mount the caster wheels, and this can be also 11 gauge thick. And now we can finally go shopping for some steel. But it turns out that buying metal isn't as simple as buying lumber, and it can be quite confusing and intimidating for the first-time shopper. You first need to find a good place to buy metal. Unlike lumber, you can't just go to Home Depot or Lowe's to browse around and pick things out yourself. You have to know exactly what you need, which we already figured out. So you can place an order with the front desk clerk, who will send the instructions to the guys in the back of the warehouse to cut it to size and help you load it up. I first went to Metal Supermarket, which is one of the most well-known metal suppliers, but I found the guy working there very rude and condescending. Like, for instance, I asked him what thickness he recommended for a welding tabletop, and he just told me to come back when I knew what I wanted. He seemed like he was annoyed by my question, so I left and went to Dillon Supply in Raleigh. And I'm so glad I did because I can't recommend this place enough. Everyone I talked to were incredibly friendly, happy to have a conversation with me about what I was trying to do and what I needed when I explained to them that it was my first welding project, and they even loaded up everything for me. I didn't even get my hands dirty. Well, here's a total. I spent about $190 to walk out of there with all the steel, including the tax and the $40 cutting charge, which I had no choice but to pay for since I don't have a way to carry the large uncut pieces back. Your total may vary though depending on the location, and since steel prices go up and down daily. The thing about metal pricing you should know is that you have to pay for the entire stock, even if you want a smaller piece of it. So technically, the metal I'll be using isn't quite $190, but what are you going to do? They don't sell things by the exact dimensions you're looking for. Other than the metal, you'll also need some caster wheels if you want a table to roll around. I already had these laying around, but these 5-inch tall casters with brakes will do just fine. Although they are a little bit of overkill, but like I said, I already have these laying around. You can buy some cheaper ones because these are rated at 300 pounds, so 4 of them, this is way overkill, but you can buy these from Amazon for $26. You'll also need a bag of bolts, washers, and nylon nuts to bolt the casters up if you want them to be removable. You can just weld the casters onto the table to save a few bucks, but I wouldn't really recommend that. This bag of hardware cost me about $17 from Lowe's, which brings the total to $240 including the metal. We'll round up the total cost estimate to $250 because I had to use up some angle grinder discs, but that's it. That's the entirety of the cost. That's enough talking and preparing, and finally let's get to the build itself. Once you get to this stage, everything is pretty self-explanatory, so I'll shut up and please enjoy. Well, we're all done here, and I sincerely hope I convinced you to make your own welding table as well. And it isn't just about saving money, it's about using this project to learn to weld better. And I do feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment by doing something I didn't think I could do. Now, is this table perfect? No, absolutely not. But for someone who has literally never built something like this before, I'd say it's more than fine. I feel much more confident now about welding on my project car and making more stuff like this in the future. Alright, I'll catch you guys later. See you guys next time.